Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India must remain vigilant about its own interests amid global economy facing uncertainties. Also urges citizens to promote Make in India products. US President Donald Trump moves 2 nuclear submarines to appropriate regions after social media spat with former Russian President Medvedev. Trump terms Medvedev's remarks highly provocative. US envoy Steve Witkov meets families of Israeli hostages in Tel Aviv. Visit comes one day after Witkov visited a US-backed aid station in Gaza. Ukraine claims to strike oil facilities inside Russia, as well as a military airfield for drones and an electronics factory. Russia's defense ministry says 112 Ukrainian drones destroyed. And SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule docked with orbiting International Space Station. 4 astronauts from US, Japan and Russia join ISS on 6-month mission. While laying the foundation stone and inaugurating development projects in his parliamentary constituency Varanasi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged the nation to take a pledge for swadeshi or Indian products and embrace the mantra of vocal for local. Prime Minister also appealed to every trader and shopkeeper to take a vow to sell only swadeshi products. More in the next report. Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone and inaugurated development works worth around rupees 2,200 crore in Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh today. Addressing the gathering in Varanasi, PM Modi said that India is going to become the 3rd largest economy in the world and it has to be vigilant about its economic interests.
भारत भी दुनिया की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बनने जा रहा है। इसलिए भारत को भी अपने आर्थिक हितों को लेकर सजग रहना ही है।
Prime Minister urged everyone to take a pledge for Swadeshi and called upon the nation to adopt the mantra of vocal for local. He appealed to every trader and shopkeeper to take a vow to sell only Swadeshi products, affirming that this would be true service to the nation.
हम स्वदेशी का संकल्प लें। अब हम कुछ भी खरीदें तो एक ही तराजू होना चाहिए। हम उन चीजों को खरीदेंगे जिसे बनाने में किसी न किसी भारतीय का पसीना बहा है।
Affirming that the government is committed to ensure farmers receive fair prices for their produce, the Prime Minister stated that record increases have been made in the minimum support price of crops, including key staples like rice and wheat. And to safeguard farmers' harvests, the government is constructing thousands of new warehouses across the country. Prime Minister also released the 20th installment of Kisan Samman Nidhi and transferred 20,500 crore directly to the bank accounts of over 9 crore 70 lakh farmers across the country.
आज यहां एक विराट किसान उत्सव का आयोजन हो रहा है। देश के 10 करोड़ किसान भाइयों बहनों के खातों में 21,000 करोड़ रुपए पीएम किसान सम्मान निधि के रूप में भेजे गए हैं।
As a member of parliament from Uttar Pradesh, PM Modi expressed pride that BrahMos missiles will soon be manufactured in the state. He announced that production of BrahMos missiles is beginning in Lucknow and several major defense companies are setting up plants in Uttar Pradesh defense corridor. Prime Minister emphasized that the dream of a developed India will be fulfilled only through collective efforts. With Bureau Reports, Siddharth Bharadwaj, DT India.
U.S. envoy Steve Witkov visited Hostages Square in Tel Aviv and toured a U.S.-backed aid site in Gaza amid stalled ceasefire talks and efforts to free hostages. Protests erupted after Hamas released new videos as concerns grow over Gaza's worsening humanitarian crisis. While Israel has eased some aid restrictions, fighting may continue unless hostages are released.
US envoy Steve Witkov met with families of Israeli hostages in Tel Aviv on Saturday as fears for the captives' survival grow nearly 22 months into the war sparked by Hamas's October 2023 attack. This comes as ceasefire and hostage release talks mediated by the US, Egypt and Qatar remain stalled. Protesters chanted "Bring them home now" as Witkov, under heavy security, entered a nearby building. His visit follows a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday, aimed at reviving Gaza truce talks and addressing the worsening humanitarian crisis.
We just came out of meeting with Mr. Steve Witkov. It was very positive and appreciated that the fact that he sat with the families for over 2 hours, listening to every personal story and hearing each individual request, and he answered the last question and didn't go until then. He talked about what is the objective. The objective are two things: ending the war and getting all the 50 hostages out.
Meanwhile, hostage families held a news conference a day after Hamas and Islamic Jihad released videos showing two emancipated Israeli captives. The event was followed by another protest at Hostages Square. With international furore over Gaza's conditions growing, Israel announced new steps over the weekend to ease humanitarian aid access. However, the UN World Food Programme said it still lacks the necessary permissions to deliver sufficient supplies.
These constraints have to be addressed. Access must be expanded. Much more food needs to be entering, and many more supplies have to be entering on a regular basis, so that communities have the confidence that supplies are coming and that they will be receiving them and that they will be distributed properly.
Airdrops of food into Gaza have continued, with 126 packages dropped recently by countries including Spain, France, and Germany. Israel's army chief, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, warned that fighting in Gaza will continue without rest if a deal to free hostages is not reached soon, as hopes for a ceasefire hang in the balance. International efforts intensify to ease Gaza's humanitarian crisis and secure the release of hostages. Ravindra Chauhan's report for DT India.
Brazilian Finance Minister Fernando Haddad says his upcoming talks with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will pave the way for an eventual meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and his Brazilian counterpart Lula da Silva. Trump has announced a 50% tariff on Brazil. This report has the details.
US and Brazil are showing willingness to talk amid tensions over tariffs. US President Donald Trump has said that his Brazilian counterpart Lula da Silva can call him anytime to discuss tariffs.
Are you open to tariffs?
Yeah, he can talk to me anytime he wants.
What is on the table for Brazil?
Well, we'll see what happens, but I love the people of Brazil.
What evidence do you have?
Why are you trying to do I love the people of Brazil.
So why is
submarines
tariffs? They don't
close
seem
to
to be
Russia.
related to trade
Because
with
the
President.
people running Brazil did the wrong thing.
The US president slapped a 50% tariff on Brazil starting next week to fight what he has called a witch hunt against former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who is on trial on charges of plotting a coup following his election loss in 2022. The US also announced sanctions on a Brazilian Supreme Court justice who has been overseeing Bolsonaro's trial. Lula has rejected both the sanctions and the tariffs, calling them unacceptable interference in Brazil's justice system. Although later, without mentioning Trump, Lula said that Brazil has always been open to talks. Welcoming Trump's openness to negotiate, Brazilian Finance Minister Fernando Haddad said his planned virtual meeting with U.S. Treasury Secretary next week will pave the way for an eventual meeting between Lula and Trump.
I think it's great, and I'm sure the feeling is mutual. President Lula would be willing to receive a phone call from him whenever he wanted as well. As I said before, it's very important that we prepare for this meeting, for this conversation. Today, once again, I had contact with US Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent's team, so we can have a meeting next week. So finally, the longer meeting is more focused on the unilateral decision of the United States regarding Brazil.
Meanwhile, Brazilians held protests over the tariffs, saying that the US was interfering in their country's economic affairs. Bureau Report, DD India.
A war of words between Donald Trump and top Russian official Dmitry Medvedev has ignited Cold War fears, with nuclear threats flying and submarines moving. Trump ordered the deployment of 2 US nuclear subs after Medvedev invoked Russia's doomsday system, Dead Hand. DD India's Mihir Maikuri brings us the story behind this alarming escalation.
An online showdown between Donald Trump and a top Russian official over Ukraine and tariffs spiraled dramatically, all the way to nuclear threats. On Friday, Trump ordered 2 US nuclear submarines to be deployed to what he called the appropriate regions.
Oh yeah, well we had to do that. We just have to be careful. And a threat was made and we didn't think it was appropriate, so I have to be very careful. So I do that on the basis of safety for our people. A threat was made by a former president of Russia, and we're going to protect our people.
The comment was in response to a chilling reminder from Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, who warned Trump of Moscow's Cold War-era nuclear system known as Dead Hand. So what is Dead Hand? The system that prompted such a sharp American reaction. The Dead Hand, or perimeter, is a Cold War-era automated nuclear retaliation system. It was designed to launch a counterstrike even if the entire Russian leadership is incapacitated. It activates through sensors that detect signs of a nuclear attack. And though dormant in peacetime, the system reportedly remains fully operational. Medvedev's threat followed a fiery social media post from Trump, in which he declared that he didn't care if Russia and India cooperated, adding that they could take their dead economies down together. This nuclear saber rattling comes as Trump sets a looming deadline, demanding Russia take meaningful steps to end the war in Ukraine by next week or face fresh sanctions. Rising tensions, Cold War-era threats, and flaring diplomatic tempers clearly show how vulnerable the world peace remains today. Mihir Maikuri for DD India.
And still to come on DD India Newshour. Trump orders firing of Labour Department Commissioner after a weaker than expected jobs report. Clashes break out at anti-asylum protest and counter demo in North London. Japan swelters through its hottest July since records began in 1898.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
Remember to save your country.
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD.
You're watching DD Indian Newshour. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. war of words, like we told you, between Donald Trump and top Russian official Dmitry Medvedev has ignited Cold War fears and nuclear threats as well. To discuss this, I've been joined by Professor Anshu Joshi, School of International Studies, JNU. A very warm welcome to the broadcast, ma'am. It's not a very common thing to see a social media spat triggering nuclear threats, or is it?
Indeed, and I don't understand why it is coming from the head of one of the most powerful nations in the world. As in, we have seen that this threat of deploying nuclear-capable submarines to check to contain Russian, issues has come from Donald Trump, and he has said that he has deployed nuclear-capable submarines to give a befitting response to a threatening tweet by the former president of Russia, suggesting that he would be ready to launch a nuclear strike as tensions rise over war in Ukraine. So, generally such kind of statements are given in the light of expected or well-calculated repercussions also, and this will further escalate the tensions not only between Russia and Ukraine, but between NATO, empowered by United States of America, and Russia. So certainly such statements from Donald Trump do not look to be very responsible at the moment.
Definitely. Ma'am, earlier Trump has issued a deadline of 50 days to Russia to take out a solution, as far as the Russia-Ukraine conflict is concerned. And later he cut the number of days. Now this so-called nuclear threat, which Trump has issued. How do you see this entire picture in front of the world? What does your analysis say on this? Is it actually creating any impact on Russia?
See, we have to add the other developments that are happening in global politics because of Trump also. So we should see how Trump has in past few days made provocative, not only provocative statements, but also has come up with an executive order of imposing very high tariff on countries like India, and he has reduced tariffs from Pakistan. This will again change geopolitics, not only of Asian region, but also of global politics by and large. On the other hand, he has called Indian economy a dead economy. He has called trade and tariff barriers of India as obnoxious, and now this statement with respect to Russia. So we have to link together all the elements, and we should see that how he is looking at global politics at the moment, and why he is giving such kind of statements. So I think that to maintain a control not only on by and large global affairs, but what is happening in West Asian region, what is happening between Russia and Ukraine, and then he also looks at Russia not only from this war's perspective, he also brings in the element of China into it. And that is why we have seen that first he threatened Russia to impose sanctions, and he also threatened Russia as in, he would be taking another step towards escalated conflict directly between the two nations, or NATO versus Russia. And at the same time, now he has come up with this social media post wherein he has threatened Russia of deploying the submarine, though he has not made it very clear whether it is nuclear-powered submarine or nuclear-armed submarine, because that also makes a difference. So all in all, we can see that Trump is baffled at the moment, and he's just trying to generate, a situation of confusion among nations as well as leaders.
Okay, so you're trying to say that this is not in fact a warning issued by Donald Trump. This is confusion being created by the US president.
We have seen that how US president is giving statements every day, then he takes a U-turn, and he also then adds frills to those statements. So we have seen in past couple of months during his second tenure how he made first promises or came up with executive orders, then he took a U-turn, especially when we look from this his tariff announcements perspective. So here also, and then we have also seen that all of a sudden then we saw that how US attacked Iran. I mean, initially there were heated talks and statements from all the sides involved in not only Israel-Hamas conflict, but what was happening between Israel and Iran. There were alarms raised by IAEA, and after that we saw that how US jumped into it. Here also I think that at the moment, he is trying to threaten Russia, but Russia is also not taking it very seriously. You see the kind of statements given by Putin or Russian officials. So I think that at the moment, nobody is taking his, threats very seriously.
Ma'am, you talked about US and NATO. I want to ask you on that. On one hand, there are talks happening to stop the conflict, and on the other hand, a novel approach is being worked upon by US and NATO to supply Ukraine with weapons. What do you make out of it?
That's a very good question, and I wanted to speak on this aspect as well. See, war has its own economy and its own market, and we know how United States of America has successfully positioned itself as like the #1 arms seller and equipment provider in the world. And through NATO, it keeps, I would not say bullying, but it keeps pressurizing the member nations to buy equipment and arms from United States of America. So we have to make a note of this thing, that whatever is being given to Ukraine in the name of helping Ukraine against Russia, we should know that it's all it is something which will be taken back from Ukraine or to the countries which are like supporting Ukraine at the moment. And within NATO, now there seems to be 3 camps. There is one camp, leaders who are standing with Trump. There is another camp which vehemently opposes now whatever is happening between NATO or United States of America and Ukraine, and they want this war to be stopped now because they have seen a brunt on their economies. And there is third camp, all those, East European countries who have become part of NATO, but they are unable to now, increase their portion of budget allocated towards defense and security. They don't want to buy further arms from United States of America. So that has also sparked another kind of debate. So this is another whole issue, another dimension to be discussed, that in the name of helping Ukraine, what is happening actually within NATO.
Okay. But ma'am, is it that easy to reposition nuke submarines? Their movements are among the Pentagon's most closely held tactical maneuvers.
Definitely, and this is how the world, or for that matter, Russian officials are taking Trump's, statements, and that is what he has said. First, we should look at that. He has said that he has ordered for 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned at an appropriate place, at an appropriate base or region, but he has not specified the location for now. And then he has said that,
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you here, but I think it's quite obvious that US will never tell the position of their submarines.
That is true, but also with that, there are some speculations that are made by experts, and they also weigh the words or the statements made by a leader. So the kind of statements or the social post that has been posted by Trump is taken into this slide at the moment, because he has also not specified whether the submarines are nuclear powered or nuclear armed. Because if they are nuclear armed submarines, then definitely it would not only create or it would escalate the tensions further, but then it would be an alarming situation for Russia.
Okay, very quickly I want to ask you, how do you conclude this entire situation which is there in front of us right now, with Donald Trump's nuclear threats and Russia's no response at the same time?
I would say that Trump has opened another theater of discussions, not discussions, but like further, escalatory actions towards whatever is already happening between Russia and Ukraine, and indirectly whatever is happening between Russia and NATO. And definitely whatever Trump is saying, we can see at the moment Russia has not come up with any kind of response. So that speaks a volume, and we should wait and we should see that how Russia responds to these threats of Trump.
All right.
That's all I have to say.
All right. Only time will tell what will happen in this particular scenario. But thank you so much, ma'am, for joining in on the broadcast today. Thank you. The Federal Reserve announced Friday that Governor Adriana Kugler to resign early from her term and will exit the central bank on 8th of August. The Fed said in a statement that Kugler, who became a governor in September 2023, will leave before her term's conclusion, which was scheduled for 31st of January 2026. Kugler will return to Georgetown University as a professor next autumn. Kugler's early departure may shake up the timeline for the succession a process now surrounding Chair Jerome Powell, whose term ends next May. Trump says he's happy about open spot on Fed board after Kugler resigns.
Yeah, one of the governors, as you know, the Federal Reserve has just announced she's resigning. I understand it was over the fact that she disagreed with somebody from her party. She disagreed with Tulate. You know who Tulate is? She disagreed with Tulate on the interest rate. So we'll see what happens. But we just found out that I have a open spot on the Federal Reserve Board. I'm very happy about that, John.
U.S. President Donald Trump fired a top Labor Department official by accusing her of manipulating the job figures in its latest published report on job growth and the economy. Commissioner Erica McEntuffer has been leading the Bureau of Labor Statistics since January 2024. The Bureau's jobs report showed that just 73,000 jobs were added in the U.S. last month and that 258,000 fewer jobs were created in May and June than previously estimated. The report also suggested that the economy has sharply weakened during Trump's tenure. And in the latest on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Ukraine's SBU intelligence agency on Saturday claimed responsibility for a drone strike on a factory in Russia's Penza, allegedly supplying electronics to the Russian military. Video footage showed a drone and a subsequent explosion in the area. Separately, Ukraine's unmanned systems forces said it had struck Russian oil facilities and military drone airfield. Meanwhile, an explosion near an oil facility in Novokuybishsk was confirmed by video. In another development, a fire near the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant triggered by Ukrainian shelling, according to Russian-installed officials, was brought under control with radiation levels reported as normal. From flash floods in New York to volcanic eruptions in Indonesia and record-breaking heat waves in Japan, extreme weather events are sweeping across the globe. Here's a roundup of the latest weather developments.
Strong storms tore through the tri-state area, unleashing flash floods that crippled transportation in New York City and triggered a tornado warning in New Jersey. Emergency management agencies urged residents to avoid non-essential travel. In Indonesia, Mount Lobatobi Laki-Laki erupted, sending a towering ash column over 10 kilometers into the sky. Authorities have ordered evacuations within 6 to 7 kilometer radius of the crater and warned of potential mud flows if heavy rains follow the eruption. Japan endured its hottest July since records began in 1898, with the weather agency warning of continued severe heat in the coming weeks. Scientists attribute the intensifying heat waves to human-driven climate change, which is making extreme temperatures more frequent. Heavy rains inundated parts of Bihar's capital Patna, including major market areas, disrupting sales. And the Mandi town of Himachal Pradesh was hit by a massive landslide on Saturday. From severe heatwave conditions in Japan to heavy rains in India, these intense weather patterns highlight a changing climate and its growing threats across the world. Sarita Chaudhary's report for DD India.
In United Kingdom, protests have erupted in Manchester as rival groups face off over the ongoing use of a facility to house asylum seekers. Police were forced to intervene after clashes broke out between far-right Britain First Party and counter-protesters. The two groups are being kept apart by metal barriers and officers. Police had earlier imposed strict conditions on both the protest and counter-demonstration and increased their presence. A series of anti-immigration protests have taken place across the UK in recent weeks after an asylum seeker was charged with sexual assault against a minor in July. And still to come on DD Newshour. A discussion with an expert on India's economic growth. India's UPI records all-time high in July with 1,947 crore transactions, worth 25.1 lakh crore Indian rupees.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Near the heart of India. A land filled with surprises. In your lush forest.
You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and a quick recap of the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India must remain vigilant about its own interests amid global economy facing uncertainties. Also urges citizens to promote Make in India products. US President Donald Trump moves 2 nuclear submarines to appropriate regions after social media spat with former Russian President Medvedev. Trump terms Medvedev's remarks highly provocative. US envoy Steve Witkov meets families of Israeli hostages in Tel Aviv. Visit comes one day after Witkov visited a US-backed aid station in Gaza. All right, and going back to our top story and joining us on the broadcast on that today is Submoy Batra, senior economic journalist. Sir, a very warm welcome to the broadcast. Prime Minister Modi today in Varanasi said that India is on track to become the 3rd largest economy in the world. Now, with country's GDP projected to reach $7.3 trillion by 2030 and inflation easing, what all sectors, according to you, have contributed to India's significant growth?
All sectors. I mean, that is the important part about understanding how India has been doing. It's not about just one sector or one area which is doing well. You can't have a long-term sustained growth rate just on the basis of one sector.
Yeah.
So across the board, if you look at the decomposition of the GDP, you see that almost every sector, in fact, from agriculture to industry to services, these have all been very, very significant areas of growth, and they're all showing up their strength. And that is something which makes us very confident that this rate of growth will now sustain. And as you are projecting, yes, India is going to be above 7 trillion by 2030, because that's exactly what we would expect with a growth rate of around 7% or even more. And that's showing up. So there's a broad-based development that's happening, and every sector has been pushing on the growth story. Yeah,
indeed. Now, sir, global economy is facing several challenges in the current scenario. And on the other hand, India's economy is witnessing significant boom. What factors contribute to the same, according to you?
But two things, as the Prime Minister today himself said, that first of all, it is not just from the Prime Minister, as he was saying, that everybody, right down to the smallest entrepreneur, everybody has to contribute to ensuring that growth momentum of the Indian economy is kept strong. Now, there are lots of ways to do it, but essentially what it means is that opportunities will be coming up, but opportunities would also must be sustained, and opportunities must be provided to every sector. For instance, when we are talking about, he was talking about tourism. The tourism is something that was often not noticed and wasn't such a significant, considered a significant value addition. But tourism in states like Uttar Pradesh, in states like Odisha. These are the new areas, other than what we have already been the major tourist circuits, are significant growth enablers, and they provide employment, they provide sustenance, and what's important is that they are not polluting. So what exactly happens is that it broad bases the growth to large number of people, and that's something that's very important. But to make that happen, there is a necessity that everybody, right from the district administration to the state administration and onwards to the center, the officials concerned must provide the right environment, quick clearances to ensure that tourism takes off. I mean, that's something. We just have about 9.8 million people coming into India. Now that's very small, very small. I'm talking about foreign visitors into India. Spain, Barcelona itself gets the same amount of number of tourists as we get in the entire country. So you can see it's a hugely underdeveloped sector. But given the factors that we have, given the facilities that we have, given the attractions that India provides, this is a sector that just hasn't been harnessed. And this is a sector where a lot can be done if we use imagination and we produce along with that clearances to ensure that people can come in fast and get the best quality services to make their visit memorable. Yeah.
You've highlighted, you've emphasized on tourism sector a lot, and also you've just said that if put imagination into it, a lot can be done. What do you mean when you say imagination, sir?
By imagination, I mean that essentially there is a lot of space for going vocal for local. For instance, when tourists come to India, they would like to see Indian products. But those Indian products have to come to them very fast. It has to come to them comfortably. It has to come to them through an assurance that these are genuine products. Now, if we don't do that sort of a stuff, then if we don't use our imagination to create the marketing chain, then obviously neither our artisans get the benefit, neither do we get the chance to sell our best products to the tourists, and we don't get the benefit of tourism. So these are the sort of stuff that we need to do. Those are the sort of stuff that we need to do. That, for instance, if you want to produce indigenous goods from our place, you know that, for instance, the Prime Minister has talked about the one district, one product.
Yeah.
Now, one district, one product is a very fantastic idea. But when we have that, but it's up to the people to implement it. That what does it mean when it says one district, one product? The quality has to be good. You can't it's not a question of excluding other products from being produced. It simply means that district should be extremely good at producing that product so that everybody converges. That product becomes synonymous with that district. So there is a lot of imagination and play which can be used and which is necessary to make these schemes become successful. Yeah.
Indeed. As far as India's booming economy is concerned, sir, I want to ask your reaction on the very fact that today India has become one such country with everyone wants to do business with. With recent example being the FTA. So how do you see that? How do you react to that? And how significantly it contributes to the booming economy of the country?
Well, the point that we should remember about these free trade agreements is that they are necessary for us, but they should basically be value enablers for us, in the sense that we need the free trade agreements, but we need them at our terms. It should not be something that we do it at the terms which somebody else needs.
Sir. I think
which would be helping us.
Okay, I think you got it wrong.
Significant, and that's what exactly the Prime Minister said.
Yeah.
That yeah.
No, I think you got me wrong here. I was just.
Yeah, should I continue?
Sir, can you hear me? I wanted to ask you that the kind of business hub that India has become. I wanted to get your reaction on that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can clearly hear you. Can you hear me, sir? Sir, can you hear me, sir? All right, we are trying to reconnect with our guests. Meanwhile, in a major breakthrough for Indian medical industry, doctors at Amrita Hospital, Faridabad, pioneered a highly advanced shoulder revision surgery using an acellular human dermal allograft. Allograft patch, in fact, marking the first such case in India. But we'll come back to it little later. I think I've been told by my producer that our guest has joined us again. All right, we'll continue with the same story. Meanwhile, we are trying to reconnect with our guest. And this technique is widely used in the US, but rarely accessible in India due to regulatory and supply challenges. Involves using a patch made from donated human skin to strengthen and support damaged shoulder muscles. This method significantly reduces the risk of re-tear and improves long-term shoulder function, especially in complex revision surgeries where both bone and soft tissue damage are involved. The procedure represents a critical step forward in bridging global innovations with Indian clinical practice.
Unique to India. Yeah, that's what. We were happy that we worked really hard to get the patch from abroad, and I think it has been used by a couple of other surgeons, but we were lucky to be the first to use it.
Human patch augmentation. That human patch is probably going to help grow my muscles. So it's been 2 months since I had the surgery, and I've been way better than before. Yeah, I really hope that this human patch augmentation helps and my shoulder stops dislocating anymore. It's a human patch augmentation. That human patch is probably going to help grow my muscles. So it's been 2 months.
In a move to advance global development cooperation, the Ministry of External Affairs of India launched the first tranche of 4 projects under the India-UN Global Capacity Building Initiative. Announced on August 1st, the initiative opens a new chapter in India's efforts to strengthen partnerships with nations across Asia, Africa and the Caribbean. The initial 4 projects focus on vital areas including food security, health, vocational training and census preparedness. During the launch, Tanmay Lal, Secretary of West MEA, said that nearly 60 projects in more than 50 partner countries have been completed under India-UN Partnership Fund, which was launched in 2017.
India-UN Development Partnership Fund was also launched in 2017. Nearly 60 projects in more than 50 partner countries have been completed so far under this unique South-South cooperation program. More than 30 projects are ongoing. And the program flows really from the priorities of the partner countries, especially in SIDS and LDCs. The projects are implemented by UN partner agencies.
Prime Minister of Nepal, KP Sharma Oli, is set to participate in 3rd United Nations Conference on landlocked developing countries in Turkmenistan. PM Oli will leave Turkmenistan on 3rd of August, leading a Nepali delegation. The conference is being held in Avaza, Turkmenistan from 5th to 8th of August 2025. Prime Minister Oli is scheduled to address the conference as the chair of the Global Coordination Bureau of the least developed countries and in national capacity. There are 12 landlocked countries in Asia that do not have direct ocean access. 32 out of the 44 countries on the globe in Africa, Asia and South America have been classified as landlocked developing countries by the UN. In these, 9 of the 12 countries with the lowest Human Development Index rankings are landlocked. Let's take a look at other stories making news in India. India's digital payment backbone, Unified Payments Interface or UPI, posted a fresh record in July 2025 with 1,947 crore transactions amounting to a staggering 25.1 lakh crore rupees. This marked a 35% year-on-year growth in transaction volume and a 22% rise in transaction value. The Amrit Udyan, located within the Rashtrapati Bhavan, will open its gates to the public from the 16th of August to September 14th. The President's office announced on Saturday that garden will be open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. with last entry at 5:15 p.m. and will remain closed on Mondays for maintenance. India's Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal interacted with leading industry captains from textile sector in Mumbai. The minister discussed bold ideas to enhance global competitiveness, sustainability, innovation and value chain integration with an aim towards India's rise as a global textiles powerhouse. India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan attended the second edition of the Chinnar Book Festival that kicked off in Srinagar on Saturday. The minister said that Jammu and Kashmir is going to transform into a hub of knowledge and research through New Education Policy 2020 under the leadership of PM Modi. The 9-day literary event features over 200 publishers offering books in Hindi, Urdu, Kashmiri and English. The Election Commission of India on Saturday announced that it will enhance remunerations for booth-level officers and other positions under the BLOs who are involved in the preparation and revision of electoral polls. The revision was last done in 2015. The ECI also approved 6,000 rupees incentives for BLOs for special intensive revision starting from Bihar. And still to come on DD India Newshour. France faces massive holiday gridlock during traditional summer exodus. Football governing body FIFA launches its first talent academy for youngsters in India in collaboration with All India Football Federation.
The future always starts now. Some people choose to seize that moment and shape what comes next. This episode is to remind us that impact doesn't always have to be loud to be powerful.
We realized that if women became involved in decision making and generated income, the whole family would benefit, and women would be involved in this way.
By collecting waste, the city's garbage is considerably reduced. We select what's needed, sort it by quality, and sell it. This is how much of the plastic ends up recycled. If this stops someday, the traffic will come to a standstill.
We aim to ensure animals can return to the wild. If they came to me for food, that wouldn't happen.
You're watching DD India News. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. SpaceX Crew 11 astronauts arrived at the International Space Station, NASA announced on Saturday. The Crew 11 team lifted off aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida on Friday. The arrival marked the start of a 6-month mission during which the 4 astronauts from US, Japan and Russia will conduct scientific research aboard the orbiting laboratory by partnering with private industry. American astronauts Zena Cardman, Mike Fenk, Japan's Kimiya Yui and Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov called this mission as a journey of lifetime and hoped for an incredible time on board with crew members.
This has been the absolute journey of a lifetime. We are so incredibly grateful to be here. Thank you so much for this warm welcome. It was such an unbelievably beautiful sight to see the space station come into our view for the first time, especially with these wonderful crewmates.
You have made us feel so welcome. We're so glad to be here. We're happy to join you. And we will do our best to help the 73 crew who's on Crew 10 to get home safely. Your friends and family are waiting for you.
I'm so grateful to be here. We have great Crew 11 crew members and also this expedition members. Yeah, I'm very looking forward to working with them and make this expedition 73 the best.
I'm Oleg Platonov, and I'm also would like to say thank you very much for so warm meeting, and I believe and I hope we will have incredible and unbelievable time on board.
In France, more than 1,000 kilometers of traffic jams were recorded on Saturday at midday, classified as black in the direction of departures for the traditional summer crossover between July and August holidaymakers. Traffic congestions were seen at various locations across the entire Wannsee-Autoroute network due to the traditional summer exodus of travelers. During the gloomy weather, motorists patiently waited at the Mont Blanc tunnel heading towards Italy. That was congested with a 1-hour, 45-minute traffic jam. And let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. In Italy's capital, Rome, thousands of young Catholics began assembling on Saturday for an evening prayer vigil led by Pope Leo XIV. The Pope will fly in by helicopter to lead an evening vigil, returning to the same field where St. John Paul II drew more than 1 million pilgrims during the Jubilee of 2000. Georgia hosted a major military exercise with NATO troops, despite its government facing growing accusations of moving off its pro-Western path and tilting closer to Russia. The exercise brings together 2,000 troops from 10 nations, including the US, Germany and Poland. Sri Lanka's biggest Buddhist cultural festival, Kandy Asala Pereiras, is underway at the historic city of Kandy. The third Kumbul Parahera of the Kandy Asala festival marked the third day of the festival. The Parahera is a ritual started back in 4th century BC as a homage to the sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha. The Kumbul Parahera will continue for 5 consecutive days from July 30 to August 3rd. The 16th and final Airbus C295 military transport aircraft has been handed over to the Indian Air Force. Now, the remaining 40 C295 aircrafts will be built at the Airbus facility in Gujarat. DD India's Atman Sandhu gets us this report from Spain.
We're in the heart of Europe's aerospace hub, Sevilla, where a significant milestone has been reached between India-Spain Defence Cooperation. The final and 16th Airbus C295 military transport aircraft has been ceremonially handed over to the Indian Air Force.
Under the Make in India initiative, the remaining 40 C295 aircrafts are going to be built at the Airbus facility in Gujarat. The facility was launched by Tata Advanced Systems Limited and formally inaugurated in October 2024 by Prime Minister Modi and Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez. The C295 is a versatile transport aircraft capable of carrying up to 71 troops, conducting airdrops, cargo missions, medical evacuation, and operating from short unpaved runways, ideal for India's diverse geography.
Right now, we'll move to the more important part, which is the 40 aircraft that are to be built and integrated in India. This is part of the Make in India program of Prime Minister Modi, which has actually seen one of the best projects that we can work on in the world today. And we are going to see over the next 5 to 6 years, 40 aircraft to be built in India. This not only will create an ecosystem for building aircraft, but it will also make sure that most of the parts of an aircraft are built in India too.
Airbus and Tata describe this landmark deal as a cornerstone for Atmanirbhar Bharat, highlighting India's self-reliance in boosting its defense power by creating around 15,000 high-skilled direct jobs, around 10,000 indirect jobs, and integrating 125 domestic MSMEs into the aerospace supply chain.
We delivered aircraft number 16. All the aircrafts were delivered ahead of contract, and we are very proud. The customer satisfaction is being 100%. So we reached the highest level of quality in the deliverables of these aircrafts. It's been a day of pride also because we built during all these years a team spirit with the Indian Air Force, with our dear customer, where the teams built not only transparency in the way of working, but real, true trust.
This project has strengthened India-Spain relations beyond defense cooperation. It exemplifies the growing convergence between the two nations in global supply chains and technology development. This is Atman Sandhu in Spain for DD India.
You're watching DD India News. Our time now for sport. And FIFA on Saturday launched its first talent academy for youngsters in India in collaboration with All India Football Federation. This collaboration aims to provide elite training to talented footballers in the country. The International Football Federation signed an MOU with the AIFF and the Telangana government for opening of the academy, which will reinforce India's commitment to inclusive and structured grassroots development of football. The academy will be located at the Gachibowli Stadium complex in Hyderabad and will offer year-round high-performance training with residential facilities, education, medical care, nutrition and mental wellness to 60 elite players. South Korean soccer player Son Heung-min announced on Saturday that he will end his decade-long spell with Premier League club Tottenham Hotspur this summer. The 33-year-old Son, who is contracted with Spurs until 2026, played a key role in helping the club secure their first trophy in 17 years with a win over Manchester United in the Europa League final in May. He joined the North London side from Bayer Leverkusen in 2015. Although he did not reveal his next destination, reports linked Son with a potential move to Major League Soccer's Los Angeles FC. Son has made 454 appearances for Spurs and scored 173 goals. He claimed the Premier League Golden Boot during the 2021-22 season. That's all for this edition of DD India Newshour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Newshour.